What if the colors that whisper to your soul were not chosen by chance, but by the echoes of lives you've already lived? For centuries, civilizations have understood that color is far more than a visual phenomenon. It is a language of the unseen, a bridge between the material and the spiritual. The ancient Egyptians painted their gods in lapis lazuli blue, believing it mirrored the heavens and the afterlife. In the temples of India, saffron orange was not merely a hue but a sacred vibration, worn by ascetics to signify renunciation and divine connection. The Mayans perceived green as the breath of the earth itself, a living force tied to fertility and rebirth. In the esoteric traditions of medieval Europe, alchemists spoke of the ruby, the reddening, a stage of transformation where the soul, like molten gold, was purified through fire. Yet, what if these associations were not just symbolic but personal? What if the colors that draw you in, those you surround yourself with, the ones that stir something deep within, are not preferences but memories? Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet of the early 20th century, revealed in his trance readings a truth both profound and unsettling. The soul carries the imprint of its past lives, not only in dreams or déjà vu, but in the very spectrum of light it is drawn to. The colors that resonate with you are not arbitrary. They are the fingerprints of your spiritual history, the energetic residue of roles you've played, lessons you've learned, and worlds you've walked before. Consider this when you stand before a painting and feel an inexplicable pull toward a particular shade, or when you dress in a color that makes you feel alive in a way you can't explain. You may be glimpsing fragments of a larger story, a story written not in ink, but in the vibrations of your soul's journey. The question then becomes not what you see, but what remembers you. And so we must ask, what if the colors you love are not choices at all, but invitations? Invitations to recall, to heal, to understand the deeper currents of your existence. The next revelation awaits: how Edgar Cayce's forgotten readings decode these chromatic messages, and what they reveal about the lives you've lived before this one. The hidden language of the soul. Edgar Cayce's revelations on color and past lives. Long before modern psychology sought to decode the subconscious through color, Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, unveiled a far deeper truth, that the hues which stir the soul are not mere aesthetic inclinations, but echoes of lives long forgotten. His readings, delivered in a trance state of profound clarity, suggested that every color carries within it the vibrational imprint of the soul's journey, each shade a silent testament to the roles it once embodied, the lessons it once learned, and the energies it once wielded. Cayce's philosophy rested upon an ancient understanding that color is not merely light refracted, but memory made visible. The Akashic records, the cosmic archive of all souls, do not speak in words alone. They resonate in frequencies, in the crimson of battlefields past, the sapphire of sacred temples, the emerald of forgotten forests, where the soul once walked as healer or sage. To be drawn to a color, then, is to be called by the resonance of one's own history. It is the soul's way of whispering, quote, remember. Quote. His readings revealed a precise correspondence between color and incarnation. Those who find solace in blue, he explained, often carried the mantle of the spiritual guide. Priests in Egyptian temples, healers in Atlantean halls, or keepers of esoteric wisdom in civilizations now lost to time. The red that pulses with vitality, it is the mark of the warrior, the leader, the one who once stood at the forefront of change, their soul forged in the fires of conflict or passion. Green, the hue of renewal, speaks of lives spent in communion with the earth. Herbalists, druids, or those who tended to the sacred balance between man and nature. And purple, that enigmatic blend of red and blue. It is the signature of the mystic, the occultist, the seeker who walked the veil between worlds, their consciousness expanded by rituals and revelations beyond the ordinary. Yet Cayce's insights were never merely diagnostic. He saw in these chromatic affinities a map, one that could guide the seeker toward their highest potential in this lifetime. To recognize the colors that call to you is to acknowledge the unfinished work of the soul. The warrior's red may now manifest as unyielding courage in the face of modern challenges. The healer's blue as an innate ability to soothe and restore. The mystic's purple, a a restless curiosity for the unseen, a pull toward the metaphysical that cannot be ignored. And so the question lingers in the silence between thought and memory. What hues follow you like shadows from another time? The answer does not lie in the pigment itself, but in the quiet stirrings of the heart when it encounters the colors that feel like home. For in that recognition, Cayce assured us, the soul begins to remember not just who it was, but who it is still becoming. The sacred echo of blue, priests, healers, and the memory of divine service. Long before the written word captured the whispers of the soul, there existed a color that transcended mere sight, one that carried the weight of devotion, the quiet pulse of healing, and the unspoken vows of those who walked between the seen and the unseen. That color was blue. Not the fleeting blue of a summer sky, but the deep, resonant azure that lingers in the halls of ancient temples, the robes of mystics, and the hands of those who mended more than flesh. Edgar Cayce's readings, hidden for nearly a century, reveal a profound truth. Those who are drawn to blue in this life may well be answering a call they first heard in another, one that echoed through the corridors of sacred service, where the soul wore the mantle of priest or healer. Consider the blue of lapis lazuli, ground into pigment by the hands of Egyptian artisans to adorn the tombs of pharaohs and the brows of high priests. This was not mere decoration, it was an invocation. The priests of Amun-Ra, clad in linens dyed with the indigo of the Nile's sacred lotus, understood that blue was the color of the divine breath, the hue of the sky at dawn when the gods were said to speak. In the silent chambers of the temple of Karnak, where incense curled like serpents toward the ceiling, the high priest's staff was often inlaid with lapis, a reminder that his words were not his own, but channeled from realms beyond. Cayce's readings suggest that souls who served in such roles carry the imprint of that sacred duty forward, their attraction to blue in this life a residual hum of ancient vows. Yet blue's spiritual resonance extends beyond the temples of Egypt. In the hidden groves of Celtic druids, the healers, those who knew the language of herbs and the songs that could unravel fever, wrapped themselves in woolen cloaks, stained with woad, a plant that yielded a blue as deep as the twilight between worlds. These were the ones who stood at the threshold of life and death, their hands pressed to the foreheads of the dying, guiding them through the veil. The blue they wore was not for show, it was armor, a declaration that they walked in service to something greater. Cayce's visions speak of souls who, lifetime after lifetime, return to this role, not by coincidence, but by the magnetic pull of a purpose unfinished. And what of the Byzantine mosaics, where Christ and the Virgin Mary are eternally robed in ultramarine, a color so precious it was said to be worth its weight in gold? The artists who placed each tile did so knowing that blue was the color of heavenly truth, the shade that could not be corrupted by earthly shadows. Those who were drawn to it in past lives often found themselves in roles where truth was both their weapon and their burden. Confessors who heard the sins of kings, midwives who delivered not just children but prophecies, monks who copied illuminated manuscripts in inks mixed with crushed gemstones, their fingers stained with the same blue that now stirs something inexpressible within you. So one must ask, when you see blue, do you feel a quiet pull, as though it holds a secret meant only for you? Is it the blue of a priest's robe in a forgotten lifetime, or the blue of a healer's hands, still warm from the touch of those they saved? Cayce's work does not demand belief, it invites inquiry. The next time you find yourself drawn to the depth of a sapphire, or the tranquility of a twilight sky, pause, listen. The soul remembers what the mind forgets, and perhaps in the silence between breaths, you will hear the echo of a vow you once made, one that still colors the edges of your destiny. And now the narrative turns to the color of fire and blood, of passion unyielding, and battles fought in the name of destiny. Red does not whisper, it commands. It is the hue of warriors who once stood upon fields of conflict, their spirits forged in the crucible of leadership and sacrifice. Edgar Cayce's readings reveal that those who are inexplicably drawn to this color may carry within them the echoes of lives, where power was not merely sought, but wielded, where the soul was tempered by the weight of command and the heat of struggle. Consider the annals of history, where red has always marked the presence of those who shaped the course of civilizations. It was the crimson cloaks of Roman generals, the banners of medieval kings, the war paint of indigenous leaders who led their people through trials of survival. To favor red is to resonate with the frequency of those who stood at the precipice of chaos and chose to act, whether through the blade of a warrior, the decree of a ruler, or the fiery conviction of a revolutionary. Cayce's records speak of souls who, in past incarnations, knew the burden of decision, where hesitation meant defeat and resolve meant legacy. Yet red is not merely the color of conquest, it is also the hue of deep primal emotions, the rage of injustice, the fervor of love, the unrelenting drive to protect what is sacred. Those who are magnetized by it may recall the adrenaline of battle, the thrill of leading charges, or even the sorrow of lives lost under their command. It is a color that does not allow for passivity. It demands engagement, whether in the arena of war, the halls of power, or the personal battles of the spirit. And so one must ask, when you see red, what stirs within you? Is it the memory of a sword raised in defense of the weak, the weight of a crown worn not for glory, but for duty, or perhaps the quiet fire of a leader who once inspired others to rise? The soul remembers what the mind forgets. If red calls to you, it may be the voice of a past self, one who knew the cost of power and the price of courage. Pause now and let the color speak. What does it reveal about the wars you've fought, the causes you've championed, or the strength you've carried across lifetimes? The answer lies not in the hue itself, but in the depths of what it awakens. And now the narrative unfolds into the quiet embrace of the forest, where the soul remembers the whisper of leaves and the pulse of the earth beneath bare feet. Those who are drawn to green, deep emerald, soft sage, or the vibrant hue of new growth, carry within them the echoes of lives spent in communion with the natural world. Edgar Cayce's readings reveal that this affinity is no accident of taste, but a resonance with past incarnations where the hands were stained with the sap of healing herbs, where the breath synchronized with the rhythms of untamed landscapes, and where the heart beat in time with the ancient wisdom of the earth itself. History bears witness to these souls. In the mist-laden highlands of Celtic druids, they were the keepers of sacred groves, interpreting the language of oak and rowan as others might read scripture. Their fingers traced the veins of leaves to divine the will of the gods, and their voices carried the songs that coaxed the land back to fertility after winter's grip. In the dense jungles of the Americas, they walked as the shamans of the Maya, their knowledge of Ixchel, the sacred ceiba tree, bridging the seen and unseen worlds. They understood that illness was not merely a disorder of the body, but a disruption in the harmony between human and earth. And so their remedies were not just potions but rituals of reconnection. Yet green does not speak solely of healing in the physical sense. It is the color of the alchemist's viridis, the verdant stage of transformation, where base metals were purified in the crucible of nature's patience. Those who loved this hue in past lives often found themselves as the silent observers, the monks tending monastery gardens in medieval Europe, where every petal and root was a meditation on divine order. They were the midwives of Renaissance Italy, their hands steady as they delivered new life into a world that had not yet forgotten the old ways. In the quiet corners of ancient Egypt, they were the physicians of the temple of Sekhmet, where green malachite was ground into powders to draw out fever and pain. For they knew that healing was both art and sacred duty. What does it mean then to feel the pull of green in this life? Perhaps it is the memory of hands that once pressed into damp soil, planting seeds that would feed a village, or the lingering sense of a vow taken beneath a canopy of stars, to protect the balance between humanity and the wild. The next time you find solace in a forest's shade, or lose yourself in the scent of rain on green things, ask yourself, is this familiarity merely preference, or is it the soul's recognition of a path once walked? The earth remembers. And so, it seems, do you? And now, the veil parts to reveal the enigma of purple. A hue that does not merely exist but vibrates between the seen and the unseen, a bridge suspended between the earthly and the ethereal. Edgar Cayce's readings, buried in the archives of the sleeping prophet's trance states, whisper of those who are drawn to this color as souls who have walked the shadowed corridors of mystery in lives long past. Purple is not chosen lightly. It is the signature of the mystic, the alchemist, the seeker who once stood at the threshold of hidden knowledge, peering into realms where ordinary eyes dare not gaze. In the annals of Cayce's revelations, purple emerges as the color of the initiated, those who in previous incarnations were the keepers of sacred rites, the interpreters of omens, the weavers of spells. It is the color of the high priestess's robe in ancient temples, where the air hummed with the weight of unspoken truths. It is the stain of ink on parchment in the scriptorium of a medieval occultist, transcribing forbidden texts by candlelight, while the world slept. Those who are magnetized by purple today may have been the oracles of Delphi, their voices trembling with the breath of Apollo, or the Hermetic philosophers of Alexandria, decoding the universe's secrets in symbols and sigils. This color does not merely attract, it remembers. It carries the resonance of chants echoed in stone chambers, the scent of burning incense curling toward unseen deities, the quiet power of hands that once traced sacred geometry into the sand dot. Yet purple is also the color of paradox. It is the union of red's fiery passion and blue's infinite calm, a duality that mirrors the lives of those who walked the path of the occult. They were healers who understood that light and shadow are not opposites but companions, that true wisdom is born in the tension between revelation and concealment. Perhaps in another time, you were the one who mixed potions under the full moon, or the scribe who recorded the dreams of prophets, or the silent figure in the corner of a royal court, reading fate in the flight of birds. The pull you feel toward purple now is not coincidence. It is the soul's way of signaling that you have stood in these roles before. So consider this when you are drawn to purple. What stirs within you? Is it the echo of a mantra half remembered, the ghost of a ritual your hands once performed with unwavering faith? The past is not a closed book, it is a living current, and purple is its most elusive ink. Let it guide you back to the wisdom you once held, and ask yourself what ancient knowing is waiting to be reawakened. The alchemy of the soul, how interwoven colors reveal the tapestry of past lives. And so we arrive at the threshold of a deeper mystery, one where colors do not stand alone but intertwine like threads in an ancient loom, each hue whispering secrets of the soul's journey across time. Edgar Cayce's readings did not merely assign singular meanings to color preferences. They revealed that when an individual is drawn to multiple shades, it is the universe's way of signaling a soul that has walked many paths, gathered many lessons, and carried them forward into the present. Consider the one who feels equally pulled toward the serene blue of the healer and the fiery red of the warrior. This is not a contradiction but a testament to lives spent in both the temple and the battlefield. Perhaps a priest who once led revolts for justice, or a physician who fought plagues with the ferocity of a general. The interplay of these colors is not random, it is the residue of karmic imprints, where the soul's energy still hums with the duality of compassion and courage. Then there are those who find solace in the emerald green of the earth's keepers, yet feel an inexplicable pull toward the violet of the mystic. Here the soul remembers lifetimes spent as a druid communing with the forests, only to later incarnate as an alchemist seeking the philosopher's stone. The green speaks of roots, literal and metaphorical, while the violet murmurs of ascension, of hands that once traced sacred geometry in candlelit chambers. Cayce's archives hint that such individuals often return with a mission to bridge the tangible and the ethereal, to remind humanity that the earth is as sacred as the stars. But what of the soul who loves them all, the one whose eyes linger on rainbows as if recognizing an old friend? This, the readings suggest, is the mark of an ancient traveler, a consciousness that has danced through countless roles, from the golden robes of a royal advisor to the indigo cloaks of a silent monk. Their challenge in this life is not to choose a single path but to harmonize the symphony of their past, to weave wisdom from each color's vibration into a cohesive purpose. For colors, like past lives, are never truly separate. They bleed into one another, creating the unique spectrum of you. And so we must ask, when you stand before the palette of existence, which hues call to you like a forgotten name? Is there a color that stirs something deep within, as if awakening a memory just beyond reach? Perhaps it is time to listen, not with the eyes but with the soul. For in the quiet spaces between shades, your past lives are still speaking. The alchemy of the soul, how color reveals the path of spiritual evolution. They say the soul does not forget, only the mind does. If Edgar Cayce's revelations hold truth, then the colors that whisper to us across lifetimes are not mere aesthetic inclinations, but sacred echoes of who we have been and who we are still becoming. To gaze upon one's favored hue is to stand before a mirror of the soul's long journey, a journey not of linear progression, but of spiraling evolution, where each life refines the lessons of the last. The question then arises, what happens when we remember? When we allow the wisdom of past incarnations, encoded in the vibrations of color, to illuminate the choices of the present. History offers us glimpses of this transformative power. Consider the life of Hildegard of Bingen, the 12th century mystic whose visions were bathed in emerald light, a color she described as the very breath of the divine. Her writings on healing, her compositions, even her botanical studies, all bore the imprint of a soul that had walked the green paths of healers in ages prior. She did not merely prefer green, she embodied its frequency, channeling ancient knowledge into a legacy that still resonates today. Or take the case of T. Lawrence of Arabia, whose obsession with the crimson hues of desert sunsets was not mere poetic fancy. Cayce's readings suggest that such souls, drawn to red's fiery intensity, often carry the unresolved fires of past lives as warriors or revolutionaries. Lawrence's strategic brilliance and his tormented relationship with violence hint at a spirit still reconciling the battles of yesterday with the peace it now seeks. Yet spiritual evolution is not the domain of saints and legends alone. It unfolds in the quiet moments when a modern-day accountant, inexplicably drawn to indigo, begins to dream of sacred geometry, or when a corporate lawyer, haunted by the gold of ancient temples, abandons litigation to study alchemy. These are not whims, they are the soul's compass, recalibrating toward unfinished growth. The colors we love are not random, they are the signatures of our highest potential and our deepest wounds, both waiting to be acknowledged. So one must ask, what if your attraction to cobalt blue is not just preference, but the lingering resonance of a life spent in silent temples, where words were prayers and time moved like incense smoke? What if your discomfort with yellow is the shadow of a past betrayal when trust was broken under a sun too bright? The invitation then is not to passively observe these hues, but to engage with them as living dialogues, meditate upon them, wear them, surround yourself with their frequencies and listen, for the soul speaks loudest when it recognizes its own voice across the ages. The path forward is not in rejecting the past, but in integrating it. For in the alchemy of remembrance, even the darkest shades become the fertile soil from which wisdom blooms, awakening the soul's chromatic memory, practical rituals to reclaim your past lives through color. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul, but what if the colors they are drawn to are the doorways? Edgar Cayce's hidden readings suggest that the hues which resonate deepest within us are not mere aesthetic preferences, but vibrational echoes of lives long lived, wisdom long buried, and lessons still unfolding. To engage with these colors is to engage with the soul's own language, a silent sacred dialect spoken in shades rather than words. Yet how might one translate this language into tangible practice? How does the mystic, the warrior, the healer, or the sage of past incarnations speak through the blue of a twilight sky, or the crimson of a setting sun? The first and most profound method lies in meditation, not the passive stillness of modern mindfulness, but the ancient intentional communion Cayce himself described. One might begin by sitting before a single object of their soul's chosen color, a sapphire, a ruby, an emerald, or even a swath of fabric dyed in the exact tone that stirs the heart. With eyes softly closed, they are to visualize this hue expanding, enveloping them like a mist, dissolving the boundaries of time. The priestess who once wore cerulean robes in Atlantis may then whisper through the indigo depths of their mind's eye. The warrior who marched beneath vermilion banners might ignite a fire in their solar plexus. This is not imagination, it is recollection. The color becomes a bridge, and the meditator, a traveler crossing it. Yet meditation alone is but one thread in the tapestry. The living space, too, must become a sanctuary of chromatic resonance. Cayce's readings speak of those who, in past lives, dwelled in temples painted in sacred geometric patterns, their walls infused with pigments ground from minerals and plants, attuned to spiritual frequencies. To replicate this, one might drape a room in the hues of their soul's memory, deep violets for the mystic, forest greens for the healer, gold for the philosopher king. But it is not enough to merely see the color, it must be felt. Lighting a candle of the same shade, while journaling may unlock fragments of forgotten tongues. Anointing the wrists with essential oils whose bottles bear the sacred hue can awaken the body's own cellular memory. Even the food upon one's plate, pomegranate seeds for the red-souled leader, spirulina for the green-souled earth keeper, becomes an act of communion. And what of those moments when the color seems to choose them? A sudden obsession with lapis lazuli jewelry, an inexplicable pull toward amethyst caves, the way a field of poppies brings tears to the eyes. These are not coincidences, they are the soul's way of knocking. Cayce's archives tell of a woman who, upon surrounding herself with topaz, began dreaming in a forgotten dialect later identified as ancient Egyptian. Another, after painting his study in ultramarine, found himself compelled to study herbalism, only to discover his past life as a monastic apothecary. The color does not lie, it remembers. So let them ask themselves, when was the last time they allowed a color to lead them, not as decoration, but as devotion? The answers lie not in the mind, but in the marrow, in the way the breath quickens at the sight of a particular shade, in the unshakable sense that this hue has always been, and will always be theirs. Perhaps it is time to stop admiring the color, and start listening to it. For if Cayce's secrets hold true, then every brushstroke of the universe is a sentence in the soul's autobiography, and the palette, it is infinite. And so, the journey through the prism of the soul reaches its culmination, not as an end, but as an invitation to deeper contemplation. Edgar Cayce's revelations do not merely assign meaning to color, they unveil the soul's fingerprint etched across time by lives lived in devotion, struggle, wisdom, and transformation. The hues that draw the eye today are not accidents of aesthetics, but echoes of ancient vows, battles fought, healing bestowed, and mysteries pursued in realms beyond the veil. To recognize this is to stand at the threshold of a profound awakening, one where the past is not a distant shadow, but a living current shaping the present. Consider, then, the weight of these insights. The priest who knelt in blue-lit temples, the warrior whose spirit burned crimson on the field of honor, the healer whose hands channeled the emerald pulse of the earth. These are not mere archetypes. They are fragments of you, scattered across the tapestry of existence, waiting to be reclaimed. Cayce's work suggests that color is more than memory. It is a bridge between the soul's forgotten chapters and the conscious steps one takes today. To meditate upon your chosen hue is to dialogue with the self that has walked before you, to ask, what wisdom did I carry? What wounds remain unhealed? What purpose still seeks fulfillment? Yet the true alchemy lies not in knowledge alone, but in its application. The colors that resonate within you are not just markers of what was, they are guides for what could be. The lover of indigo, once a guardian of sacred knowledge, may now be called to teach. The one drawn to gold, a former architect of civilizations, might today build bridges between hearts. The soul does not repeat its past, it transcends it, using the vibrations of color as both compass and catalyst. Let this understanding settle like dust on an ancient manuscript, revealing words long hidden. The question is no longer what your favorite color says about your past lives, but how you will let that revelation shape the life you are living now. Will you see your attraction to violet as a whisper from the mystic you once were, and perhaps still are? Will the warmth of orange ignite the creative fires of a life spent in artistic rebellion? The colors do not ask for passive admiration, they demand engagement. As the final pages of this exploration turn, remember the soul's journey is not linear. It is a spiral, returning to familiar vibrations, but always at a higher turn of awareness. Cayce's secret was never just about the past, it was about the present's potential to honor every shade of the soul's history while painting boldly into the future. So take this knowledge, hold it to the light, and ask yourself, what masterpiece will you create with the palette of your many lives?